Bring the meeting to order, Wednesday, February 21st at 6:21 PM. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr. Kazansky.
Mr. Bonomo?
Here.
Mr. Cosmo?
Here.
Mr. Fume?
Here.
Mrs. Kay?
Here.
Mr. Mahalik? Mrs. Garcella?
Here.
Mr. Szymanski?
Here.
Mr. Van Oken?
Here.
Mr. Zola?
Here.
Okay, I'd like to announce we've had two executive sessions, one February 6th, 2018, regarding personnel and negotiations, and February 21st, which was tonight, personnel and litigation. We have a presentation by Erica Book, our school student representative.
So once again, these are just a few of the acknowledgeable things that the students have done this month in February in our school district. First off, 8 students have advanced to the Regional Chorus Festival, which is February 28th through March 2nd, 2018, at Honesdale High School. There, they will audition again to qualify for All-State. Also, one student, Lizbeth Moore, was the first of any student at Hazleton Area High School to be selected to perform in the PMEA All-State Vocal Jazz. The PMEA conference will be held April 18th through the 21st. The Arts and Humanities Dance Studio will be performing at the American Cancer Society Telethon this Saturday. Our beginning/intermediate students will be doing a jazz number, and our advanced students have prepared a lyrical routine. The students are also collecting donations from the students in the Arts and Humanities Academy in order to present a check to the American Cancer Society. The mock trial team beat MMI and Tunkhannock on the way to their district final. In the final against Wyoming Seminary, the score was tied 2-2. At a tiebreaker, the rule gave to Seminary. After students visited the Renaissance Fair in October, students entered and won several contests. The photojournalism contest, first place was awarded to Cody Calwick in 11th grade, and an honorable mention is Sabrina Betterly in 11th grade as well. The display ad contest, first place, Esmeralda Cipides, and she's in 11th grade, and the honorable mention is Kaylee Tito in 9th grade. These winners received an invitation to a winner's picnic held in the 2018 Renaissance Fair season. There was also a writing contest winner given first place named Tatiana Campbell. The girls volleyball team was awarded with the Service Ace Award from the Side Out Foundation for fundraising over $1,500,000. They pre-sold t-shirts and held an awareness rally during one of their games to fundraise for breast cancer research. 9 band students will participate in the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association Region 4 Band at Wyoming Area Secondary Center. Region Band will be held from February 22nd to February 24th, and each student competed in 2 rounds of auditions and spent countless hours preparing music to gain membership into this ensemble. 11 band students will participate in the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association District 9 Jazz Festival, which will be held March 16th and the 17th at Wyoming Seminary Upper School. 3 students will participate in the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association Northeast Region Orchestra held at Dallas High School. Region Orchestra will be held from March 21st to the 23rd. Each student completed 2 rounds as well of auditions and spent countless hours preparing. The Visual Art and Fine Arts Club students are working on decorations for the American Cancer Society telethon. These decorations will be displayed this weekend at the telethon held at WYLN. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Do we have any public announcements or recognitions?
We do not.
Okay. Do we have public comment directed to the board on agenda items only at this time?
Lou Gunderman, item number 27.
Good evening.
I'm Lou Gunderman. I'm the boys track and field coach here in the school district. I've been coaching now for just about 39 years. Item number 27, concerning the football turf. I know the turf has been in there for 14 years, and I'm sure at this point it needs to be replaced. And it should be, because we don't want any of our young athletes or visiting athletes to be injured on such a turf. However, my concern is, when are we going to do something with the track facility? We have nearly 200 athletes that will be converging upon that field in the next 2 weeks, and they're faced with changing in a shed and going to the bathroom in a porta potty where there's no place to wash your hands or have any privacy. I think it's time, because our facility is just about the same age as the football field, that we get some place to change, go to the bathroom, wash our hands, get a drink of water, store our equipment, and perhaps have some places to maybe do some indoor training ourselves. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Teresa Redwinski, item 71 and 72.
Hi, Teresa Redwinski, President of the Hazleton Area Education Support Professionals. I'm wondering why we find the need to create yet another non-classified position. What will make this position non-classified?
Can answer that. There are some supervisory duties with the position that are,
Okay, so
Right
then
there.
the supervisor that is currently the supervisor will no longer be the supervisor?
no, she will remain, there'll be, there are changes to both job descriptions, but we're still working on the other job description, and that'll be presented next month.
So we're gonna have two supervisors.
No, it'll be an assistant. The position that we're talking about here will be kind of like an assistant supervisor.
So basically, it's a created position. Because we really need all these
There-
supervisors.
There are, and I said this at our last meeting, that there are certain, or not certain, but there's some issues that we have within our technology department that we need to refocus our energies and reconfigure, if you will, that department. And by adding this person or this position, that will start that process so we can free up some of our personnel for different types of technology.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the board to reconsider voting on this tonight, because I am going to be asking for a unit clarification and possibly filing an unfair labor practice with this. So I'm going to ask you to please reconsider and maybe meet with the union and see really why this is being created as it's being created. Thank you.
Antonio Rodriguez, item number 21.
Before I speak, I am going to remain silent in remembrance of the 17 lives that we lost at the high school in Parkland, Florida. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pertaining to item 21, I am saying yes. Yes, I'm all for security, and now more than ever. And I am recommending a couple of points here. So I think I'm going to need more than 3 minutes, please. I am recommending that we hire more security officers, and also we need bulletproof vests for armed officers. We need at least one armed police officer using a bulletproof vest at the high school entrance. At least one. And that, what I'm saying here is what I'm suggesting and recommending. And that officer is not to walk away from his post at no time at all until the building is empty at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And no one No employee or student or nobody at all should engage that officer in conversation while he is on duty. His responsibility will be safety for all humans in the building and outside the building also. Very important that that officer is zeroing in on whoever tries to walk into the building. What happened in Florida? How did that lunatic get into the building? I think only God has an answer to that. Now, what I'm doing here is recommending and suggesting. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I am a concerned citizen, and I have 3 granddaughters at the high school and another granddaughter at the Hazleton Township Early Learning Center. Hazleton Township does not have a police department. The state police is at least 3 minutes away from here. I'm setting, I think, a minimum of 3 minutes for the state troopers to get here. And 3 minutes is too long. And the Hazleton City Police is too far from here. Please, I am recommending that you take a more proactive approach towards
15 seconds remaining.
towards our students. Who can tell me what this means? Can anybody tell me what this means? I have a new meaning for it. I have a new meaning for this. It's right here. If I have to take this to Harrisburg, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
That's it.
That's it. Need a motion to approve the board
Make a
meeting
motion.
minutes. Motion by Mr. Bonomo, January 25th meeting.
Yes.
Second by Mr. Szymanski. On the question, Mr. Krasansky.
All in favor of approving both sets of minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report
So
for
moved.
January. Mr. Bonomo, motion? Second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question? Mr. Krasansky?
All in favor of approving the treasury report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Mr. Uplinger?
Thank you. Under curriculum and instruction, approve items 1 through 16 with one motion.
So moved.
On
Well-
question?
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Do we have
Second,
a second? Second by Mr. Zola. Question?
please.
Mr. Zola?
Number 9, the recommendation for the board to approve and release the district's K-12 guidance plans to the Department of Ed. Will the board see those before they go?
Yes, those were sent to all board members via email probably half a month ago, prior to our release of the 339 plan. The 339 plan is a guidance plan. It shows that we're on par for the state. It shows that we have career readiness standards that we're going to
That's for
tackle
the
next.
Career Center, correct?
No, it's for the entire
Entire
district.
district?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. With the ESSA mandates now that are pushed out, it's no longer NLCB, it's ESSA. With those mandates pushed out, now we have career readiness standards that we have to kind of focus on. So yes, that was sent to all board members earlier than.
Can you
for-
send me
for
a
the-
copy?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
And just one more, on number 10, the recommendation for the board to approve this trip to Madison, New Jersey, and then the FM Kirby Center, is that the same thing? Are we talking about the same trip or
It's the same trip, yes.
same trip? So they're going to Madison, New Jersey, and then back to the Kirby for the tragedy of Macbeth? I just want, maybe I'm just reading it wrong. That is the name of the theater in Madison. Oh, it's
Yes.
also
Be
the
the
FM
same
Kirby?
name.
Wow, how about that for a coincidence? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Kazansky.
All in favor of approving motions 1 through 16, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motions pass.
Item number 17, recommend board approve the educational trip to Southeastern Asia, countries including Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. Jennifer Mason, HAHS biology teacher, is working in conjunction with an accredited educational tour company known as EF Tours. The company follows the U.S. State Department travel warnings, and they have a peace of mind policy that will require them to change their destination if any travel warnings are issued for the countries they plan to visit. This area of the world is one of the most biodiverse regions. Students will solidify concepts they have learned in the classroom by experiencing them firsthand. The trip is being planned for June 2018, after the school year ends. There will be no cost to the district. Students will be responsible for paying their own way, and fundraising will be done to assist.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Szymanski on the question.
I have a question. So this came up last year. I'm just wondering, it really has nothing to do with the money whatsoever. It's taking our children to these countries, and what's going to happen if something happens there?
It would be just, we would take that under consideration, just like if anything would happen here. We would have to take whatever issue that we would have to take and take part of that.
Well-
Mrs. Mason?
Well, what if something happened, like when we see people go to other countries, and so you're not going to follow the same laws as the United States? What if something happens and someone doesn't know that where you are, it's against their laws to do something, and they end up, being detained?
You have several guides, don't you?
We have, yes, well, we're not gonna be on our own. We have a 24/7 tour guide. They're bilingual. They direct the culture of these countries, what they should and should not do, as well as if we travel policies and procedures, and if anything severe ever happened where they needed to get us out of the U.S. State Department would come before us. Everything is done through Education First, which is a travel company. They've traveled all over the world for years.
What's going to happen if they get sick while you're there?
We have medical insurance provided by EF Tours, insurance policy through the EF company, so they incur all costs.
I don't really think I would be worried about the cost. I would be worried about the care that you could get in these countries.
Top-line medical facilities. We're
Well-
in major cities, we're not in rural parts of the country.
I mean, I know people that live in Vietnam full-time. That's where they've moved. That's not really an accurate statement, but thank you.
Well, just one question. I'm not certain why this needs to be board approved. We're not paying, the district's not paying for it. The money's run separately, there's a separate group. Why does it need to be board approved?
That was a question that I'd posed earlier when we brought this forward prior, and some of the board members thought that it would be better to have board approval rather than just sending our kids out and not doing that and having that the stamp of approval of the school board rather than just me saying, yes, it's okay to go. And I've done this in prior district as well. Any outside trip that we've taken outside of the states has always been board approved.
I think in the climate that we're in, this is unsafe to send our children there, but
Anything else? Mr. Kazansky?
Motion number 17, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
no.
No.
Noting Ms. Kay and Mr. Zoll is no. Motion passes.
Mr. Uppinger?
Under special education, And alternative education, number 18, recommend board approve
So
gifted.
move.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mr. Zola. Question? Mr. Krasansky.
Motion to approve item number 18. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under nutrition, approve items 19 and 20 with one
So
motion.
move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second by Mr. Zola. On the question. Mr. Krasansky.
Motion to approve items number 19 and 20. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motions pass.
On page 4, under security, item number 21, recommend board
So moved.
approve.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question? Mr. Krasansky.
Motion to approve item number 21. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under technology, approve items 22 through 24 with one
So
motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo. On the question. Mr. Krasansky.
Motion to approve items 22 through 24. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motions pass.
Under student activities, athletics, and extracurricular, approve items 25 through
moved.
27.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second by Mr. Szymanski. On the question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Van Hopen.
With such big expenses like the turf field and the track and field, and knowing the life expectancy of the fields, why was something not budgeted or preemptive in leading up to this instead of a one, all suddenly we're faced with now we have to spend $500,000 on redoing the field when we knew this was coming, but I don't know, I'm new, so was this taken into consideration before, or can we maybe do something going forward since we have a lifetime? I mean, it would only make sense to budget it in over time rather than at one.
I think you're right. I think it's great now after this is done to budget, get prepared for the future.
I mean, we know what this is going to get us in terms of life and
Right.
track and field. I mean, the athletic director and the coaches know. So, I mean, to work with them on a plan of what we need to save each year to keep up to date with the facilities will only benefit the district and the students. So,
And we are going to address the track needs this year somewhat. We do have a bathroom facility sitting for years now over at our transportation garage that we'd like to see put to use. I mean, we're not going to ignore the track people. They do need something over
well, at
there.
least if we can make a schedule of these projects, then we can make sure each project gets addressed with full attention and full financial ability. I think the coaches and athletics would appreciate that.
I agree.
That recommendation was brought up 2 years ago at budget meetings, to start budgeting to replace the track, because at that time, it was known that it had a life expectancy, 10 to 15
Right.
years.
We have budget meetings that are going to be coming up. We'll
that-
set a date
We'll
for
do
that.
that.
But you're right,
Yeah,
if it
I
would have
mean,
been started, we would have had
Yeah, we
this
would
money
have.
all at once.
We wouldn't have been put in this situation.
So I guess my question would be, where's the money coming from for this?
Mr. Krasansky, could you give an explanation as to where this money,
Okay, just to answer the first two questions there. Each budget you must close out at the end of each year.
Right.
So to set money aside, what you would have to do is designate it towards a fund.
Right.
Which is where the second question comes in, where's this money coming from? So we would set that money aside into a capital projects fund, be it $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and that's the point we're at now. Although the money that we're using to make this purchase was from a bond issue that we had used for the Maple Manor complex, in which we did not need it all. That's where, to answer the question, where the money's coming from at this point in time.
and doesn't that money have to be earmarked towards certain things?
You can. In a particular bond issue, when you do a bond issue, you do have to identify general terms, but not too vague. You basically have to say maintenance projects, athletic projects, technology projects, et cetera. And then you allow the public, because it is the public's money, the bond issue, to become aware of that, which is when we get to motion number 32, the purpose of that this evening, is to change the ramifications and the points of where we want to spend this money going forward. The actual money that this was from, again, is from the Maple Manor. It was left over. We also had in this bond issue money designated for maintenance projects from the castle and some of the other facilities around our campus area here. Those were not put by the wayside, but they may have been taken care of through routine maintenance, or in some cases we found out that that money was not needed for that particular situation. So we did revisit with our bond counsel to find out, in order to spend this remaining funds that are left over, rather than giving the money back, we'd like to address the capital projects such as this with this issue, so that, again, that leads to item number 32.
And we have used a portion of that money for other immediate projects. I believe, we talk about the intercom or the phones and stuff like that. That was all part of that same amount of money, or that same
Well, we didn't
fund of
make
money?
any purchases. The only purchases or obligations to purchase we have made is the security cameras for the
Okay.
district, the boiler up at Arthur Street, and the boiler at the high school. So right now, of that, I want to say at the time, Mr. Leman, around $2 million it was initially. That's all of the money that's been earmarked for specific projects.
So,
This would be
so
the
let me
next
just say
project.
though, about a month ago, we brought this up. It was brought up that there was $1 million left from the bond issue at the castle, and 1 point some million left from the Maple Manor project. At that time, we asked to use $1 million of that to cover the security cameras, which the board felt as a need, and it's being done. So we invested $1 million into the infrastructure for security purposes.
Right.
The second million, we asked that money be used for the schools to catch up on projects, capital improvement projects that have been dropped year after year after year. I mean, we could sit here and name a dozen of them just off the top of our head. So we had asked for that second money to be used for the telephones, so that every class, again, heading towards security, for intercoms, again, heading towards security, make sure that everyone hears messages that come over. But we also asked then that $10,000 per school go to technology, and then the rest of it to be used for each school accordingly, and projects. And if that, I just didn't expect to see a, $534,000 project,
That's why-
one project. I thought it would have went to the
and
schools.
I have a question. So, Mr. Uplinger,
Yes.
we've sat in multiple meetings so far since you've been here. I was very surprised to see this on the agenda because I didn't know this was going to be on here. So have we not said week after week, month after month, that we are short on space, we're overcrowded, we're either going to have to increase the class sizes or buy a building, add on to a building? So why are we spending this money on this before we've addressed the actual needs of the students? We had teachers sit here in November telling us they didn't have computers, they didn't have enough books. We all know what the issues are within the buildings, but yet we're not addressing the educational needs, but are going to go out on a limb and spend $500,000 on turf.
Well, we've addressed the book issue, we've addressed the computer issue in a couple different ways. Since Dr. Patty's been with us, we've been able to really delve into what we still have in the way of textbooks and have been able to push those out to needs. If there's maybe 1 or 2 books that we still need to purchase, those are small purchases. We're able to do that.
Okay, so the bigger picture is the space, correct?
Correct. And that's
So
being
why
taken.
would we not wait until we see if we need this money for space to buy a building, add on to a building, to alleviate the overcrowding, to lower the class sizes? Because there are many studies stating that the lower class sizes are better for the children. But again, we're not putting the children's educational values above a sports program.
But we are putting our children's safety first. Marie, the field is in bad shape. It really can't see another football season. And I agree, we are addressing those other issues that you brought up. That's why we hired Ms. Harry to come in here. The study's going on right now. We are going to address those issues. So
But you're spending the money before you know what the issues are. That seems quite backwards to anyone who spends money or does budget.
So you're saying it's okay if a football player breaks a leg or has
No,
a
I'm not
leg-
saying that. I'm
but-
not saying that at all. Everybody's safety is important. However, there are other things that we could do with the athletes. We could say our field isn't in shape for you to play on it. We could play our home games away for this season if we have to. But the education of our children have to come first.
That always is first, but this is something that has to be done, and we are going to address your concerns.
There was one capital improvement project, Eddie, for Heights Terrace. It was the greenhouse room.
Right.
And that was actually included in this bond issue and has been overlooked now for over 2 years. It's been turned down for over 2 years. This year I found out that we actually close, the trailers are located behind the building, and we actually have to close 4 classrooms in those trailers when it snows, because the snow builds up on the roof of the greenhouse, and then the heat from the bottom causes this snow to fall off and come down. And I was up there, I'm gonna say a month and a half, 2 months ago, with maintenance up there and all, and it's a concern, and it needs, either that needs to be corrected, or they need to put some type of awning. But it's been overlooked, and it's gonna be overlooked again, because once this money's spent, it's gone. And that was on the capital improvement list, so.
So, and one more thing, Mrs. Cosmo, you said last month when we were discussing this that the parking lot needed to be fixed, that children were going to break
Yes,
a
I
leg.
did.
So why would that be not done before we're spending $500,000 on turf?
Marie,
That is being
we
addressed.
are gonna address that. All this has to be, but the turf has to, it's such a short time frame. We have to issue a PO, we have to get a date for them to install this. This is a big project that if we expect to use it for this upcoming football season, we have to get going on it now. And not that we're putting the other stuff on the back burner. When he comes back with his feasibility study, we are gonna address the parking lot, all the other issues you're talking about. We are probably gonna have
But
to.
you've already spent the money.
Well, this money wouldn't be able to, though we're doing it.
Yes, it
pay
would,
for all
capital
that.
projects.
No. Not what we're gonna have to do.
So what we'll have to do is we will have to float another bond issue and tax the taxpayers with that. That's what we're gonna have to do for $500,000 worth of turf.
So
That's
when,
what's gonna happen, Mr.
what,
Schwartz.
I know, I understand what you're saying, but when would we replace the turf then? When should we do it?
I don't know, but I think that we need to start prioritizing in this district and the educational value of the kids and alleviating the classroom overcrowding and giving the teachers the tools they need to teach. That's what needs to be addressed first. And maybe if we start acting like adults and doing what's right for the kids, then we will be able to show them how to act, and we'll be able to have the teachers and have enough staff on site that when there is an issue with the child, they're able to address that and not overlook it. So it's in the big picture when everybody's saying about the shooting in Florida, it's not the first, it won't be the last. We don't have enough resources to give our children what they need, and yet we have $500,000 for turf. That's my point. We need to prioritize.
Okay. Mr. Krasansky?
Motion to approve items number 25
Can we
through
vote on those
27.
separately? Can we vote on those separately?
Roll call vote?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, items 25 through 27. Mr. Bonomo?
Yes.
Mr. Cosmo?
Yes.
Ms. Kay?
No on 27.
Ms. Scarcella?
Yes.
Mr. Szymanski?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoken?
Yes.
Mr. Zola?
No on 27.
Mr. Fume?
Yes. Okay. Hold on one second, Mr. Mahalik wants to call into the meeting.
That's why the meeting was going so smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, bud, you're live, okay?
Okay, Mr. Uplinger?
Okay. On page 5, please. Under Finance, approve items 28 through 36.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question.
I have a question. So I read online that the Hazel Township tax collector did not have their bond. Mr. Slesser, you were named in that article. So was that addressed and is it corrected?
My understanding is it's in the process of being addressed. I believe he's got until March 15th to provide the bonding obligation. I'm being told that is going to be coming any day now.
So are we going to be not sending our Hazel Township taxes out like Hazel Township did not?
Well, our taxes don't go out
They don't go out
till,
till July.
till July.
What happens if the bond doesn't go through?
If he does not qualify for failure to post a bond. Township would have to fill the vacancy if there's a vacancy.
So there would be someone that would send the taxes?
Yes.
And so, Mr. Epplinger, were you notified of this?
No, I was not aware of it.
You weren't notified about the Hazel Township tax
Yes,
collector?
we were. We were.
Well,
we were
it may have gone
notified by
to-
Luzerne County.
Mr. Krasansky, but yes.
Because I pulled the audit off of the Luzerne County website, and it said that the superintendent was given notice. So I'm just asking you if that's correct or
Apparently, the
not.
notice went to Mr. Krasansky.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Kay, as of today, the bond has been approved. I was told from my husband that the bond it has been approved. And if you'd like, you may call my husband on that.
No, I don't need that. I'm just asking that question because it's a legitimate question for the taxpayers.
I understand
Okay.
that, and Mike also addressed that in the newspaper.
And we have the answer. Okay, anyone else? Mr. Krasansky.
Approve motions 28 through 36. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I abstain from that, number 30.
Any noes? Motion's passed.
Item number 37, recommend board approve the following request for proposals.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question.
Mr. Fume, if I may for a second. Letter A, beverage vending RFP. We received one proposal back. I would like to table that item. I'd like to look into it a little further.
We have a
possibly.
motion to table that.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second by Mr. Zola. We need to vote on the motion to table, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Krasansky.
Are we still voting on B?
Just right now, 37A to table.
To table.
All in favor to table 37A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion A is tabled. And
We can mo-
just to continue, I'm sorry,
No,
Mr.
go ahead.
Fume, motion B, we did receive the demand response from Direct Energy, who has been our provider for at least the last 3 years, if not further. They gave us another great rate. We are asking to do a 2-year contract. The laws change after year 2, so that's why I'm asking a 2-year rather than a 3-year as the RFP originally went out. So again, I am recommending Demand Energy Services for letter 37B.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we had a motion and a second, so.
Yes, we did, Mr. Bonomo, and Mr.
Okay.
Cosmo.
Mr. Krasansky?
37B, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 38, bills.
For motion to pay the bills? Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second?
Second by Mr. Szymanski. Question?
Just one. On A, was that resolved, Bobby?
Yes, well, it actually was a different letter, Mr. Zola.
Okay.
That we talked about, and that has to be until the project is 100% complete.
Thanks for looking
Thank
into
you.
Okay. Mr. Krasansky?
To approve the bills, number 38, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
On C.
I'm a no.
No, no, Mrs. K?
Yes.
Okay,
Or no, not just C.
okay.
I'm a no on C, Mr. President.
Yes.
I'm a no.
Bill, number 38 passes.
Mr. Upplinger?
Bobby, I was a no on C, not
Yes.
Yes, no. Under superintendent's agenda, approve items 39 through 42 with one motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question? Mr. Krasansky?
Motion to approve items 39 through 42 with one motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion's passed.
On page 7, approve items 43 through 56 with one motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scarcella. Question?
Bobby,
Yes,
no, Bobby Fume.
I'm sorry.
Just I have one. For 43 to 49, the people that are resigning, did we conduct exit interviews on these individuals?
Those, yes, those would have been conducted. There she is.
Will we be able to get a copy of those?
How do we do that, Jesse? Do we anonymously, that you will not see who the person is,
Yeah, that's
but you'll
fine.
see yes.
Yep.
And
That would be
it's
fine.
voluntary?
Do we get any returns, Jesse? I'm only asking that because it's important for us to know, are we doing a good job? Are they happy when they're leaving? Is there a reason that they're leaving? Are there problems? And if we don't do that.
Yep.
And maybe even follow up, like if they don't respond, follow up. And I think, Jesse, this goes back years ago, and I know there's a board policy on it. So I think we need to do a little bit harder on trying to get that information so we know if we're doing a good job as a district for our employees.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think that's a good thing.
if I can just see the ones that you have, Jesse, from this group, thank you.
Mr. Krasansky.
Motions to approve items number 43 through 56 with one motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion's passed.
Page 8, approve items 57
So
through...
moved.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question? Mr. Kazansky.
Motion to approve items 57 through 67 in one motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion's passed.
Mr. Uplinger.
On page 9, approve items 68 through 72 with one motion.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Szymanski, second by Mr. Bonomo. Question?
We had a request from Mrs. Redowinski to table number 71. I think it was 71, wasn't it, or was it 72? 72. Are we,
I think there's a motion on the floor, Mr. I mean, can we discuss this before?
No, well, there's a motion, but you could do a table while the motion's there, if you want.
so
Okay.
I would like to make a motion then to table 72 with the request of Mrs. Redowinski until we see if this is legit.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Zola, second by Ms. Kay.
So could we just
Yeah.
vote on that one for right now, or?
To table number 72, Mr. Bonomo,
Wait,
to table number 72.
you're not doing anything with 71?
That's not the motion.
No, motion 72.
I'm passing.
Mr. Cosmo,
No.
Ms. Kay,
Yes.
Mr. Mahalik? No. Ms. Scarcella,
No.
Mr. Szymanski,
No.
Mr. Van Hoken,
Yes.
Mr. Zola,
Yes.
Mr. Fume,
No.
Mr. Bonomo.
No.
Table fails.
Vote on the rest,
68 through 72.
68 through 72, Mr. Krasansky.
Approve 68 through 72 with one motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm a no on 71 and 72.
I'm a no on 71 and 72.
Yeah, same for me.
With no offense to Mrs. Jones.
No,
because
absolutely.
I like her.
Pat's a great
And-
employee of the district. It has nothing to do with that.
And I see one issue with this is that the job description was given to us yesterday. You know, we had no time to look at it really or speak with one another, so I think it's just a little too late to push it through, and we need to properly sit down and talk about it.
Okay.
Okay,
Item number 73, recommend board rescind the insider information and confidentiality policy board approved October 19th, 2017.
motion by Mr. Bonomo, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question?
Yes. I guess my first question would be, who asked to have this placed on the agenda?
Mr. Uplinger?
I can answer. When we submitted this information to, this policy to PSBA, they were not in favor of it. It didn't come back. The question was asked by PSBA is if we had our solicitor take a look at it. The answer was obviously yes. And then they still said that there's, and I have information from, I can pass this out.
I guess, just 1 second there. You got information from PSBA when?
It was in November, November 7th.
And yet this comes to the board tonight. You had information in November. It wasn't discussed with anyone until right now that we're seeing it on the agenda. I don't understand that. I mean, the policy was written. It was edited by our solicitor. Am I correct? That's correct. From all understandings, it was a legitimate policy. There was no problem with the policy. And for those that don't know what the policy means or does, it keeps everyone honest, basically. If you work for the district, if you're a contractor for the district, if you are an employee of the district, and you have any type of information, if someone comes to you and you're in charge of, I'll just use technology, you're in charge of technology and someone comes to you and wants to sell software to the district, and they contact Dr. Briggs, according to that policy, has an obligation to notify the board that he was contacted about this policy, about selling something to the district, so that it avoids someone contacting an employee, that employee just taking that information and then presenting it to the board, and unbeknownst to anyone, there had already been conversations about the purchasing of this product or service or whatever else. It's just to keep everybody honest. I think that's what it came down to. I can't imagine anyone on the board, and that's why I asked who put it on. I can't imagine anyone on the board would be against the policy simply because it protects the taxpayers' money from being, squandered. So we ran it through the solicitor. You made a number of changes to the original one that was sent in. I did. And then it ran past the board. It was passed. Mr. Uplinger, you get this information in November, and we're voting on it today, and never discussed it as a group anywhere. I just don't get it. I don't know why we would not want to have, and I would like to table it, and I'm going to make a motion to do so, until that information that you have from PSBA, till we all have an opportunity to review it, seek advice, legal advice on it from PSBA and that, and then bring, it could always be brought back. My second question is, we have a committee that deals with policy review. Linda, you're on that committee, I'm on that committee, Maria's on that committee. It was never presented to the committee for review prior to coming here. So I just don't get it. To me, it smells. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this until that information is shared with everyone. We have an opportunity as board members
I
to
have it
look
right
at
here.
Well, yeah, but are we going to sit here now for a half hour, an hour?
Well, I can read it to you. It's one
No, I'm
paragraph.
not asking you to do that.
We have a motion by Mr. Zoll at the table.
Second.
Second
I
by
have a
Ms. Kay.
question before, can I ask a question before we vote, or is it too late?
Yeah, now that you seconded the motion to table stops discussion.
Right.
Okay, well then, can I give my question after we vote to table it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Krasansky?
Roll call vote to table item number 73. Mr. Bonomo?
No.
Mr. Cosmo?
No.
Ms. Kay?
Yes.
Mr. Mahalik?
No.
Ms. Scarcella?
No.
Mr. Szymanski?
No.
Mr. Van Hoken?
Yes.
Mr. Zola?
Yes.
Mr. Fume?
No. Okay, we have a question.
I do have a question, because I actually voted no on this in the October meeting, which everyone can look up, it's public record. However, I am a little perplexed as to why this was put on and we weren't notified. So now we get our agendas. There's things on like the turf, there's things like this. and we don't have any backup, but you're asking us to vote on it without having the backup for it. And Ms. Streplinger, if you had that in November, you needed to share it with the board members, all the board members. Was there a discussion on
Let's
this?
go back to the turf just for 1 second. The turf was discussed last week in our
Turf was
committee
discussed
meetings.
at the,
One time, you're gonna spend $500 and some odd $1,000, and you're gonna discuss it. One time, you had 5 board members out of 9. I missed 1 meeting in 2 years, and that was last week. 1 meeting in 2 years. And that's where it got discussed, and it's put on here. You're spending $500,000+ dollars, and it got discussed 1 time. Wow. And then you're gonna try to justify it.
Let's leave the turf off, but I mean, I voted no for this, but it just is perplexing to me why all the people that voted yes for it are now voting to rescind it. And Mr. Slesser, you detailed, I asked you, I'm sure I did, and I'll pull the records for that, if it was your recommendation for this. So now, is this your recommendation to rescind this, if it was your recommendation to approve it?
The question, there was a question asked of me recently with regard to whether the policy is legal or illegal. And I don't think it's illegal. I know PSBA has raised some questions with regard to what they believe to be a possible conflict with other policies, but the policy that I rewrote, I think is legal.
So we're basically saying now, by that vote, that if an employee gets notified by someone and they say, hey, you know what, I sell this software, or I do this type of work. Hey, how about working something out? I'll work something out with you to get, there's nothing to come back on that person for. That's what you all voted for.
I think it's a little bit more than that, though.
Oh,
Mr.
it's not.
I think it's a little bit more than that, though. I voted against this when it came up. I thought it was, even if you're talking to your neighbor, you're talking to someone out there about school business, you could get in trouble for
No.
that. And I think the PSBA was looking at freedom of speech issues, so I don't know.
Is that your understanding, Mr. Slesser, since you approved the policy?
My cursory review of the PSBA letter is they're saying they think that there may be conflict with three potential policies. 2 of them they're saying that are kind of overlapping. One of them that they raise is, I think it's your policy regarding the freedom of expression and speech of employees outside of the school district. Now, they didn't extrapolate on that. I haven't researched that issue, to be quite honest with you. The policy, when it started, was 4 or 5 pages. We spent a good deal of time paring that away because I did have some very strong concerns about some of the original language. What we've got left is what we've got left after that, that time that we spent on it. But the PSBA's issue is that freedom of speech issue. I just haven't researched it.
So instead of bringing the policy back to committee and working on it, taking into consideration what the state had to say, taking it back, working on it to make it, maybe, Bobby, to answer your question, is it mean talking over the fence? Maybe we work on it to show that we just
Well, I don't
threw
think
it
there's
on
any
here.
problem with working on a new policy. Just rescind this one and work on a new one.
What we should have done was looked at that policy, because it was a board-approved policy, and if we thought at that point it needed some tweaking, then by all means, tweak it, but,
Okay. Mr. Krasansky.
Approve item number 73. Mr. Bonomo,
Yes.
Ms. DeCosmo,
Yes.
Ms. Kay,
No.
Mr. Mahalik. No. Mr. Scarcella,
Yes.
Mr. Szymanski,
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoken,
No.
Mr. Zola,
no.
Mr. Fume.
Yes. Mr. Uplinger.
Item number 74, recommend board,
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cosmo. Question. Mr. Krasansky.
Motion to approve item number 74. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm a no. I didn't even, I don't even know what it says. I'm not voting on something I don't know what it says. Didn't see it.
I'm a no on that as well.
Okay. That's it. I just want to, I just have.
I have a question, though, for the good of order, if I can.
Go ahead.
I noticed, I actually got a call today. There, on the agenda last week at the committee meetings dealing with athletics, there was a list of coaches that were on that list, and it's not on our agenda tonight.
Mr. Appelier, that's been
That's
pushed
correct.
to the
We-
March meeting?
We took it and tabled it until March, or took it off the agenda until March.
Is there a reason for that?
It's a personnel matter that we need to look further into prior to putting the whole,
Well, I mean,
List
there
out.
were, I think, maybe 7 people on that. Are we talking, it was all 7 individuals, or just one?
well, rather than, my philosophy is rather than pointing a finger at one person or 2 people or 3, then we look at the whole group and take that entirety off of there so nobody is hung out to dry, so to speak, lack of a better term.
Okay, I just want to say one thing. I voted for the turf, and I know it's a lot of money, and, you know, we've got accusations that just came up, but you know what? In the last couple of meetings, we voted on intercoms and phones that just came up in one meeting, and security cameras just came up all of a sudden also. So, you know, we can't point the fingers at this. So I, for one, am very concerned about the students. There are a lot of issues. I've said this before. Others have said it before. We need space. We need other things for the students. We've been taking steps there. We've been taking major steps, and we're going to continue to do that. But all of this needs to be done at one point or another. So I just want to say that.
Bobby, you
that's
need
all
to
I-
be factual, though. The security cameras did not just come up once. They weren't discussed just one time. They came up off the floor, they were discussed, it was tabled, we went back, we brought it forward again. So it was discussed a number of times. It wasn't just one time. And there's every student in the district benefits by those cameras. Every student, every staff member.
They absolutely
every-
benefit, and
So-
I
so-
agree for
well, wait,
security
now,
reasons.
You had your opportunity, Bobby.
Okay, well,
So-
I'm going to have another
You
opportunity.
can,
later on, too.
absolutely. You're the president of the board. You can do that. So every student benefits by the security cameras in that. This was prior to the Florida shooting, by the way. So in the past, not this board, but board members, past boards, have failed to maintain the cameras in our schools. Our school camera systems were obsolete. Most were not working. Cameras were down. So we sat on over $2 million for a number of years, and we were turning down capital improvement projects, including cameras. So yes, it was brought up, it was discussed a number of times. I am not against doing the field. I'm not against it. But when you have projects that were part of that bond issue that haven't been done yet, and yet you're going to spend that money. Are you aware of those projects, Bobby?
Oh, I am. I'm very
Okay,
aware
which
of the
ones are
projects.
they?
Mr. Zola.
Oh,
I'm not
okay,
going to
never
sit here,
mind.
yeah. Let's straighten the act out. First of all, I voted for the cameras, so don't make it look like I'm against
I didn't
security.
say you didn't, Bobby.
Okay, I'm for security. And I know we needed the cameras, and I know we needed the intercoms and the telephones. But the intercoms and telephones, didn't that just come up all of a sudden last meeting too?
No, actually, Mr. Reber brought the telephones and the intercoms up. I brought up from the floor.
Well,
about
Mr.
the- wait a minute.
Reeb is not here to.
Well,
to bring that.
I'm just saying to you, I brought up about phones originally. The intercom system came in. That was already being discussed, an intercom system by technology. And that was included into that amount of money. The original
We didn't-
motion that
but
came
we-
up, Bobby, was to
we didn't-
take the full $1 million and divide it among all the schools to be used for the infrastructure of those schools. Whether it was safety issues, whether it was space issues, that's what the original thing was.
Right, but my point is, at the time it was brought up, there was no price, there was no cost. We did not know what the costs were going to be when it was brought up. I know we need intercoms, we need telephones, no doubt, I voted for it. My point was, when it was brought up, there was no price. And I'm done with the
Well,
discussion.
there was a price on the security cameras.
There was a price on security.
Absolutely, we
I'm
knew
talking
that.
about the telephones and the intercom.
Right.
Anyone from the audience?
Mr. Mr. Stanavich.
Items
Yeah,
not on
Mr.
the agenda.
Items not on the agenda. Mr. Stanavich, did you, Joe? Nothing?
Oh.
We are,
We are done.
We are done.
it's a public comment.
There's another meeting to follow this meeting.
We have public comment on anything other than the items.
My name is Joseph L. Stanavich Sr., a citizen of Hazel, graduated 50 years ago from Hazel High School. I want to introduce myself first to you, Mr. Uplinger. I hope I didn't mess up your name.
No, you did a great job.
But most everybody in here and most everybody in Hazel knows who I am. So I stop in there. I thank each and every one of you because this is a tough job to do what you're doing. I thank you for doing it because everyone, this is a girl that's a future and others like her, a future for us. Because we're hoping to all of us live forever, but we're not. We're not going to live forever. I almost died last year. I came here and celebrated my 68th birthday because I wanted to. I can't tell across the state of Pennsylvania. I go New York to Delaware, all across Pennsylvania, and I can't talk enough good about how good Hazleton, not the town, not the county, the school board. I go to towns, and they say, oh, our school is great. I said, well, you should come to a school board meeting and see how a good school is and a good school board is. And I say that from the heart. I speak for positive, and that's what he questioned me. What's the positive? Because I sign this anywhere I go, I want to speak positive. And I have a couple ideas. Before you go, please, Mr. Upperlinger, I have something to give you as a gift, number one, and you'll know better who I am. Meaning, in a positive way, I want to meet with you someday privately.
Absolutely.
But this will explain, and I'll end there.
I just want to add that I wanted to meet you as well because the last time you were here, I wasn't here, but I watched the board meeting online in my other home and said I get to meet that guy. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, if it's pierogies, I hope you have enough for all of us.
Not tonight.
No? Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Antonio.
And the last thing I want to say, you got one of the best attorneys, not only in Pennsylvania, soon to be probably everywhere they ask for him. He's one of the best in this. He'll never let you guys make a mistake. He puts his life on the line and his reputation on the line.
Is this a public service
Yes,
announcement?
I'm proud to be a
Chris,
citizen and
this is public service
graduated
announcement.
50 years from here. I'll go.
There's a lady.
Thanks, Joe.
My name's Melinda Nepper, and I'm a parent. I own my home in the Valley, and I have a daughter that goes to Valley Elementary and a son that is in an out-of-district placement. I'm really concerned about how the special education students are disproportionately being disciplined for manifestations of their disability. The whole issue with what happened down in Florida brings to light my son in his own placement. He has autism, he has executive functioning issues, he has bilateral lesions on his frontal lobe. And he talked about taking a gun to school. My son's 11. Had he been in public school, he would have been arrested. The juvenile justice system isn't set up for our children. So when we take them, when they don't have any conscious understanding of what they are doing or saying, and the district is criminalizing these children, we have to find a better way. If not for everybody, at least for the students who are in special education, because the system is not designed for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Antonio.
I used to be a security officer at Hazleton General Hospital. And I need to talk to, I have some ideas on security, but I can't say them in public. I learned a lot about security, and I have some ideas that I need to convey to our security department and the school board and the superintendent. So I'll have to talk to, I'll have to speak in private. I'm sorry, I can't say it in public. It's,
We can certainly set up a time to meet.
Absolutely.
yes, an idea just came to me now. And let me tell the public, money spent on security, the security and safety of our personnel is money well spent.
Right.
Security should be first priority. How can the children learn if they are nervous? How can the children learn? Most of these children don't have anybody at home to help them with homework. We have many parents who do not have a high school education. They can't help their children. These children, they depend on the teachers and extra work after school. Now, I don't know how the children can come to school today and learn when they are worried about what's going to happen next. Think about it. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. And I'm 75 years old. It is too late for me to be an officer again. I'm slow, I'm very slow. But I have some ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Upplinger, do you want to announce the meeting before we adjourn?
Yes. Before we adjourn, we do have a forum, a public type meeting for everyone that is willing and wanting to stay and discuss safety and security with us. It's open to you. So we wanted to make that public. I did put it out on Facebook and tweet it yesterday, so the information is out there, and we're hoping you stick around so we can talk about it.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second. Second. Meeting adjourned.
We'll take a couple minutes
Is it
to
here?
stretch and, yeah. Okay. Where'd everybody go? I thought they wanted to get started. If you haven't yet.
Mr. Epplinger?
Thank you, Mr. Fume. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for sticking around and just voicing your opinion on the safety and security of our students and staff of the district. First of all, I certainly take this very, very seriously. The students are just like my own. I just can't claim them on my taxes. So I tell that to all of the kids when I talk with them. So they're very near and dear to my heart. Staff the same way. They're like a second family to me because I'm here all the time. And my wife can certainly attest to that. But everyone here is very special to me, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by keeping them safe. So I'm going to turn it over now to Chief Harry.
Good evening. I just wrote a short statement that I wanted to read prior to us starting that hopefully might answer some questions you may have before we even get started, and tell you some of the things that we've been doing to improve security in the district, and just basically make a few points before we start. The Hazleton Area School District has always been considered one of the leaders in school security and has always taken a proactive approach to security. The first active shooter drill in the school district was conducted in 1998, nearly 20 years ago. In just the past 2 years, the Hazleton Area School District has done the following. Equipped all security officers with and trained them in the use of handcuffs and OC spray. Certified all officers in Crisis Prevention Institute training. This training specializes in the safe management of disruptive and assaultive behavior. A school police officer and a teacher have been trained and certified as instructors in this program. Conducted active shooter training for staff members utilizing both classroom training as well as active hands-on training where staff is placed in various scenarios and trained how to respond. This training also utilized student role players acting as good guys, bad guys, victims, etc., placing staff members in situations where they had to move past wounded and deceased victims as well as make split-second decisions on whether or not to open their doors to students trapped in hallways during active shooter events. This training also utilized various municipal police law enforcement agencies to respond to the events and subject staff members to that response. In addition, staff members were subjected to the actual sounds of gunfire, coming from various portions of the buildings in order to experience what various calibers of actual gunfire sounds like. 2 officers have been certified as instructors in civilian response to active shooter events, also known as CRACE training, in order to train not only district personnel but community organizations and businesses in active shooter response. We've arranged to have the founder of the organization Safe and Sound Schools come to the Hazleton Area School District and speak to all staff members. She is the parent of a victim of the Sandy Hook school shooting and address staff members about the events of that day and lessons learned regarding school safety and emergency response to those events. School police officers have been equipped with new firearms as well as tasers and other less lethal options. New radios were obtained in order to facilitate communication within each building's staff members as well as municipal police agencies and county communications center. Manpower, resources, and the use of metal detectors were re-evaluated and redistributed based on current recommendations of experts in the field of school security and law enforcement. We co-sponsored and participated in a Homeland Security exercise and evaluation program along with state and local law enforcement, school district employees, county first responders, county EMA and 911, hospitals, and community organizations in order to test Lower Luzerne County's response to an active shooter. We followed up with those agencies with an after-action report and improvement plan in order to align the exercise objectives with preparedness doctrine to include the national preparedness goal. We provided local and state law enforcement agencies with the ability to gain access to Hazleton Area School District buildings in the event of an emergency. We've trained and certified 4 department officers as first aid, CPR, and AED instructors who in turn have certified all school security and police personnel in these programs. We've begun a program to certify selected security officers in Act 235, which allows them to be armed and increase the presence of armed personnel in district schools. The board recently approved a $1.1 million contract to install a state-of-the-art video surveillance system in all district facilities. This system will not only allow remote viewing of cameras by district personnel, but also allow responding police agencies the ability to view remotely while responding to emergency events in the district. This system will also allow officers to search days' worth of recorded video in seconds in order to find, document, and catalog events. Installation of this system has already begun. When it is completed, the district will have the capability to add gunshot detection to cameras, which will automatically detect gunshots and send alerts to whoever is programmed to receive them with the location as well as live video of the event. The district is currently in the process of securing bids to upgrade the PA systems in the buildings to give each classroom the ability to the PA as a warning system. They are also securing bids to install telephone systems in classrooms that are currently without them. Lockdown kits have been ordered for installation on each door at the high school. Arrangements are currently being made to install limited access hardware to the office doors at each school to increase security in those areas. We have just begun a situational awareness program with each school for staff members and students in order to have those individuals increase their awareness of what is transpiring around them. All security and police officers have been issued and now carry tourniquets. In addition, 250 trauma kits have been purchased and distributed and placed in numerous locations throughout each building that will be easily accessible to all staff members in order to provide life-saving measures in the event of a catastrophic event while awaiting the arrival of emergency medical personnel. This list is not all-inclusive, but highlights the efforts of this district to improve the safety and security of the students, staff, and guests in our facilities. Please remember, security efforts remain fluid and are ever-changing. We study active shooter and other events and comply with changing recommendations of experts in order to adapt to changing threats. Security is a puzzle with many pieces, all of which come together to form a security plan. Each staff member, as well as even students, are part of a successful security plan, not just security and police officers. There is no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to school security. We cannot and never will say that everyone in a district building is completely safe. If everyone follows the policies and procedures that are in place, we can assure you that your odds of surviving a catastrophic event will increase dramatically. What I can say with complete certainty is that we feel that you are inherently safer in any one of our schools than you are in the mall, a church, a theater, a local resident, or even your own home. This forum has been offered as a means of answering questions, letting you voice your concerns, and listen to any suggestions you might have. Please know that no matter what the suggestion, we will always defer to the advice of recognized experts in the field. We will not implement or change policy as a feel-good effort only. The only thing that is worse than no feeling of security is a false sense of security. If we install a false sense of security, people become complacent and lax, which invites problems. We ask you during this forum to remain polite and professional, be respectful of the opinions of others as you would have them be respectful of yours. Shouting, rude, or disorderly behavior is unacceptable and will accomplish nothing. Thank you all for coming. We will try to our best to address all of your concerns. And the last thing I'm going to say is I assure you that everyone up here cares. Thank you.
Who would like to speak first? Sure, please. If you would like, or it might be better to go up there just because then everyone can hear. Yeah.
My job is not just a parent. I'm also a special education advocate for other parents. And I'm seeing a lot of correlation with disciplining of students with special needs and the increase in behaviours. We're not really gaining ground by having them removed from the class. We're not gaining ground by segregating them. We're not gaining ground by making them feel better about themselves. You know, we're criminalizing these kids. You know, my son was threatened with an assault charge by a teacher, and he was having a meltdown. My point is, why are you in his space? He wasn't a danger to himself or anybody else, but you got into his space. We need more training for the teachers. We also need a parent-led committee for, you know, overseeing the special education. Lots of other districts have it. As far as I'm aware, we don't have one here for our district. There's no parent-run committee talking about discipline, talking about training. Patan has so many courses. We're not training the parents enough. And then when you look at, you know, my daughter who's neurotypical, she's just as much of a risk to be criminalized as well if she decides one day that she's just going to be a princess, you know, and you know, talk back to a teacher. Well, that's not talking back anymore. That's respect. So now you're going to be removed from the classroom. So we're going to segregate her for having an opinion. So I have a big worry that we're perpetuating what happens. Obviously, you know, these are individuals that have taken things into their own hands. You know, they obviously need some sort of help. But what are we doing to encourage very much these kids? I mean, they talk about the Sandy Hook shooter as having an ED classification during school, you know. We don't want to be, and the amount of suspensions and expulsions that kid had. Is there a correlation? I don't know. Look at what's happened in Florida. The same sort of thing, the suspensions, the expulsions. Is this what's happening? The gentleman in Virginia Tech, he had been suspended. He had an expulsion on his record. You know, we don't know exactly what snapped in these people, but let's, as a community, sit down and, you know, overhaul what we're doing for discipline, because not everything is a criminal act. You know, a lot of the stuff that happens with these special needs kids, there's a function to the behavior. Am I getting the attention? Am I getting what I need? Because this is the only way I can get it. Let's change that around, but in the meantime, let's stop criminalizing them. So.
Thank you. And I'll just say that I appreciate the time that you've taken to speak with us again this evening. I'm a parent of a special needs child, so I get it. I understand completely. And you hit the nail on the head. We have to get parents trained. We have to put more And I'll even go this far as to saying, if we look around this evening, we don't have a lot of people here this evening for something. Yeah, no, and for something this severe that could be detrimental to the district, detrimental to their children, we don't have a lot of people here this evening. However, we have an obligation to all of our children, almost 12,000 of them right now, 11,700 give or take. We have that obligation to each and every one of them as an individual. And yes, you are right. We have to definitely provide training. We need to get the parents here, or we need to go to the parents. So we need to do we need to look at it a little differently than what we have been. Education is special in and of itself, and there's nothing else that will compare to how a public education works compared to a private education. We have more facilities, we have more abilities to help special needs students in a public sector, in my opinion, public sector, than we do in the private sector. So we have a fantastic special ed program here. And my son that is special needs, he's a senior and he's attending STEM. So that's remarkable. From where, if I could tell you the story, and we can sit down and talk anytime you'd like, from where he was to where he is incredible.
My biggest thing is that when educators are threatening the children with criminalization and they don't have the cognitive. My son has great oral language. A lot of it's scripted, but he has it because the lesions in the frontal lobe don't affect the language center. So that's his, gift.
Sure.
Is the language. But, when I got the email saying what he had said in school, I started crying because I knew that if this was a couple of years ago when he was at Valley Elementary and Kathy Breyer and Jason Legoe were, in charge of, he would have been arrested. There's no ifs, buts, or maybe. Because the threats had been made previously for much less. My daughter, I had brought this up in her eye, she has dyslexia. I call him irritable. She doesn't get to use dyslexia as an excuse. She had gotten a behaviour grade and she was so upset with that because she hadn't done anything wrong of an 80, which, we were looking at, oh, fantastic, but when for 3 years she'd gotten 95 every single quarter on her report, she was devastated. She spoke at her IEP meeting to say that, she didn't understand why it was so low. And then her teacher comes in and says, oh, well, we don't have a rubric for it. We only have 3 grades. We don't have a rubric. So when I look at the other students that are in the classroom, I say, oh, okay, well, this one is acting as if she could be in 6th grade. But your marking, your baseline should be 4th grade. Like, you shouldn't be setting your bar so high that these kids can't attain it, particularly if they've always had it. And I had said to Debbie Nuzzi that we need to look at, having a rubric for these teachers, because from class to class and from year to year, there is no set standard for what they are. There was in my daughter's classroom, there was a young man who had thrown, I know his parents, and he had thrown a chair and he got an A. So she's comparing herself to this other kid. And she's like, what have I done so wrong? Well, what have I done? Why am I bad? So we're instilling, just even on our behavior sheets, we're instilling on these children that there is a level and you're just not good enough. And to me, that's not okay. This young man, he didn't get a 65 on his behavior grade because he's on an IEP and it was a manifestation of his ability. So no, we shouldn't be judging him for that, correct? Well, why are we judging everybody with these archaic behavior grades to tell all these kids you're just not good enough? And I think that if we don't have a rubric, then they should be gone. Behavior grades should be gone. It should be a different system. We have a school-wide system anyway.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Frumkin, and I'm a teacher at the Career Center. And one of the most important things I think we could do is talk to our kids. We do it all the time. We want our students to go home at the end of every day. We want to go home at the end of the day. But we often talk about training our staff and training our teachers and training security. But we also need to train our students. And when all these things happen in the news, it gives us all those teachable moments, and it opens the door. And we have a lot of discussions in my classroom. Kids are concerned. What do I do? The first thing I tell them is listen. Listen to things that you hear going on around you. If it makes you say, that doesn't sound right, tell a teacher, tell an adult in that school. And we can refer that to where it needs to be addressed. The other thing they ask, well, what do they do? Unfortunately, that one teacher in Florida was killed and was laying in the hall, and the students were in the classroom. We have to prepare our students. And it could be as simple as, you have to be age appropriate, but just telling them, wherever you are, look at your surroundings. Make sure that you see 2 exits or possibly a 3rd exit. Think to yourself, if you're in the grocery store, if you're at a concert, what am I going to do if something happens? What do I have near me that I can use as a weapon? Is it going to be safe for me to run? If it's not safe for me to run, then do I hide? And then do I fight? But these are all things that students need to be aware of. So I think when we talk about training staff, we also have to start talking about training our students in recognizing these things and doing what needs to be done should they be in a situation like that.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Frumkin, can I just say one thing? And I agree with what you're saying. And on the other side of that point, it should be that the adult, no matter how small they think something's being told to them by a child, should really listen, take it even.
Absolutely.
And that's what we should be showing our young people is, if you tell someone, then they need to take that one step further. Because when you ignore a child, that's not good for them.
And sometimes it's not what they're telling you. Sometimes it's what they're not telling you. And I go to guidance frequently. I was there today with some issues that kind of made me think, something just doesn't seem right. But we have to listen to kids. And, you have to, I'm not saying you have to be buddy-buddy with all the children, but you have to have that mutual respect where they know that they can come to you. Kids will say to me, I'd like to tell you something, but will you promise that you won't say anything? I can't promise you that. I will promise you that I will help you, and we'll figure this out, and if we have to go to somebody else, we will, but we'll address it. But you want to have, we're fortunate in our school. We have our students for 3 years. So they know us. They know us well. I mean, sometimes they're mortified when they raise their hand and they say, Mom. It's like, because they see us sometimes more than their mom. But they have to know that they can come to us. And because we know our students and we know when there's some, when something's not right. Just things as simple as making sure you make eye contact with every student, that every student knows that you knew they were in that classroom that day. And unfortunately, there's many students in schools who walk out of a classroom and will say, I don't even know if that teacher knew that I was in that classroom. And it could be as simple as saying, hey, you got new sneakers, making eye contact and using them in examples. But we as adults need to make that effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Antonio, excuse me, Antonio Rodriguez, and something came to my mind while others were speaking. And I used to be a school teacher. I taught at the North Schuylkill School District for 18 years. altogether, I have had 22 years experience as a school teacher. And what came to my mind just now is something very important, prevention. Prevention. Teachers, the classroom teacher is very responsible, but should know a lot about prevention. Let me give you an example. Teachers should not have a favorite student. The teacher has 25 students in that classroom, treat all of them equally. Don't prefer a student over others. And do not discuss the students' grades in front of the other students. Okay? You're talking about a student's grade, talk to that student only about what she or he had on the last test. Other students don't need to know. Because many students feel that they have to get even with a better student, you know. The teacher should not have a pet. That should not be teachers' pets nowhere at all. Treat all of them equally. Many students resent that. They resent that. I know that. I have experience on that. And I'm sorry for things that I did also. Okay? And another point, there are some belligerent parents that may want to have a meeting with the principal right now. That should not be. A parent should not come in and walk into the building and say he wants to see the principal. No. It should be by appointment only. A parent should see the principal or an administrator or a teacher only by appointment, and preferably after 4 o'clock. That's very important. It's very important. When I was teaching, I have seen parents that walked in the building and skipped the principal's office and tried to walk into the classroom. Thank God it's not happening now. But this should not happen. No parent at all should have a meeting right now with anybody. Make an appointment. Make an appointment. Appointment preferably a week from now when he said it has cooled down. Okay, very important. Copycats. When an incident happens, it is very important that everybody should be aware of copycats. We already had a couple of copycats right here in Pennsylvania from what happened in Florida. We had a student who got caught with a weapon. I saw it on Channel 16 a couple of days ago. We had a threat. Students calling in threat. These are copycats. Very important. Be aware of copycats. And train all teachers about bullying. No student at all should be bullied. No student at all should feel that he or she has a lesser value than other students. It's very important that you watch those students and listen to what they have to say. Some of these students are speaking Spanish only now. I have seen them. They speak English, but they prefer to speak only Spanish. Why? Because they don't want somebody to know what they are saying. That could be dangerous. That could be dangerous. A student speaking a foreign language and you don't know what he or she is saying. Be very careful with that. That can become dangerous. And it is very sad to say that we do have criminal gang members around here. It's very sad. We all should be, all of us should be very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great points.
My name is Damaris Arcelay. I am a parent. I have a 5-year-old who currently goes to Arthur Street School. First, I would like to thank you for your information in regards to what you currently are doing, actively what you have been doing in regards to keeping all of the 11 plus 100 students safe. I specifically wanted to come here because, as everyone knows, the shootings are in every channel that you turn on to. I personally, this is my first year my son is in school, so we're new to the school system. I've attended a few meetings, my first time speaking here, but I personally had an incident with the school district where I felt as though you failed me in keeping my child safe. Particularly in the beginning of the year, some of you may already know who I am since I did send emails to a lot of the board members. Specifically, because of that fear, because of the incident that happened with my child where he was, during dismissal, he was let go without me being present. I arrived to find my child 2 houses down from the school, which a parent obviously is unacceptable. Since then, my child is now picked up specifically from the main office because of this incident. In my emails, I had requested information as in what was happening, how would we handle this moving forward. We decided that the best way for me was to keep my child in the office and pick him up from there. My concern is, I heard you speak about the locks for the doors for the high school, but is the same measures being held for specifically elementary schools, like the school that my son is attending? Will they also be receiving the same forms of locks? I know that a lot of focus is normally done in high schools because that's normally where a lot of the majority issues happen, but I worry just as well for my 5-year-old as I do for my nephew who is in high school. So I just wonder, are the same precautions being held? Are the teachers also receiving the same form of training, as I know that everything needs to be age appropriate? So for example, Arthur School is only until 3rd grade, so what you would discuss and the things that you would do in high school is not specifically what would be done at the Arthur. So my question is, how are we specifically handling, for example, educating my 5-year-old and their teachers and making sure that they're being kept safe?
Okay, I'll answer your first question with the lockdown kits. When I first came across these particular kits, which was several months ago, I looked into the number of classrooms and doors in the entire district and looked at how much it was going to cost to put them in all the classroom doors. Prior to ordering them, fortunately, I decided to go take another look at all the classroom doors in every building. Unfortunately, those particular kits would be useless on a lot of the schools because of the construction of the doors. The high school, the classroom doors at the high school are the typical types of construction that these kits are made for. And that's why we're doing them for the high school right now. But unfortunately, we have to look at other measures in some of the other schools because of the way the doors are built, the types of windows in them, that type of thing. It would be a waste of money to put them on those doors. As far as the training, we just ordered a number of books that are going to be used in McAdoo. Mrs. Skotek is here tonight. She's the vice principal at McAdoo Clare School. She's going to pilot a program where we're going to utilize these books that were brought to our attention by Michelle Gay, who spoke at our Act 80 Day. She was the parent of the Sandy Hook victim. And these books are geared towards elementary school students. So we are going to start that. Mrs. Skotek is going to start that program. We're going to see how they work. And if it works the way we feel it's going to work, then we'll look at purchasing those books to use in the other buildings and try to educate elementary level students on what to do in these situations.
And in regards to since we weren't able to move forward with the locks for the other schools, would we be updated once we know what measures, security measures we would be doing as opposed to the locks like we are doing for the high school students?
And to be perfectly honest with you, the lockdown kits are an additional level of security. However, most active shooter incidents, the average active shooter incident lasts 4 minutes. And what we look at and the precautions that we take in the security measures that we
15 seconds remaining
are simply to bias those 4 minutes. We've instituted a policy in the school district where all classroom doors must be kept closed and locked when there are students in the classroom. We feel at this point that buy and of itself will give us that 4 minutes to respond, okay, without having that extra level of security for the lockdown kits.
Okay.
And I think at this point we're fine. We are looking at other things to keep the students safer, but just keeping the classroom doors closed and locked, and that was one of the points our speaker made, that her daughter was a victim because her classroom door was unlocked. And the shooter had actually bypassed the classroom before hers because the door was locked. One of the things we train and one of the points we try to make when training our staff, that there's simple things like that you can do that will keep everyone safe.
Thank you. I appreciate the information.
You're
And I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Walsh. Some of you guys I know from the full-day kindergarten battle. I'm here. I have a daughter who is in first grade right now at Drums Elementary, and I have two concerns that I wanted to talk about. One is, well, first, thank you for doing this, Mr. Eblinger. I appreciate this, and I'm sorry that the community hasn't taken advantage of it. All right, so one is. When I go to Drums Elementary, and I am a PTA member, so there are times where I get to go into the building. It's during the middle of the day. I had to pick up my daughter when she's sick. There's nobody at the door, and I've let it go. It's Drums, and I'm in the past thinking, what's going to happen in Drums, and I have brushed this off enough times now. I'm done brushing it off, and so now I'm just at a point where I would like to see somebody at the doors. I know I buzz in and they expect me to come to the office, but there's nobody there to make sure that I'm going to the office. And maybe if I looked suspicious, they would come out and greet me. But I mean, in this Florida thing, the kid was reported 39 times and nothing. So suspicious looks aren't going to be enough. Apparently, at times, being reported 39 times isn't going to be enough. So I just would like to see somebody at the door. And I also, I don't know, I was at a Valentine's Day party in the first grade classroom on Valentine's Day. I had no idea that the shooting had taken place. This was probably happening as I was there. And I remember looking around at all the kids and thinking, what would I do? What would I do? Where would we go? And the doors are locked. Kids are in and out of the classroom constantly. They're going to their lockers. They're going to the water fountain to get drinks. They're going to the bathroom. I don't not want the doors locked, but there's kids in the hallway, and every time they come back to the classroom, they have to knock on the door and wait for a student to get up to open the door for them or the teacher. In the meantime, should anything occur, they're out there like sitting ducks until somebody can open the door. If something should happen and a student is walking down the hall completely, maybe it's a sixth grader walking down the hall across right by the first grade classroom, they hear something, they can't duck into the classroom because the door might be locked. And so I'm concerned for that. I don't know what to tell you in terms of suggestions for that because I want the doors locked. It's good to have the doors locked. Don't want kids in the hallway being sitting ducks. And I really think the best way to prevent that is to have somebody at the doors at the schools, watching people coming in, maybe using the metal detectors, maybe not, I don't know. This is the time we live in. And then my second concern is the threats that were received by the Freeland Elementary teacher recently, who was just arrested last week, posted bail, got out. There was no weapons restriction on that arrest. And I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but I had contacted the state police to ask about it because it does concern me. So the person who made the threats has access to weapons. It's very clear from his Facebook page that he's a hunter and he has weapons, but they were not taken away, not even temporarily, and he is out on bail. And I worry about the kids. I was a teacher before, and some of my old students are at Freeland Elementary, so I am concerned for them as well. And I know at the middle school there's an emotional support class there, but if emotional support requires security, that leaves the rest of the school vulnerable to intruders. And again, I hate that we're even having this conversation. It just shouldn't be. But those are some of my concerns as a parent, and I wish I had more suggestions or all the answers, but I don't. And I just figured I'd share with you what I was thinking, and that those are my main concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of things. The one thing I want to point out with the incident involving the teacher at Freeland, one of the things I hope everybody understands is the jurisdiction of school police, Hazleton Area School District Police. Our jurisdiction, like any municipality, if you have a Hazleton police officer, their jurisdiction is anything that happens in Hazleton. West Hazleton's West Hazleton. With us, it's anything that happens on the property of the Hazleton Area School District. That particular incident, I don't want to speak too much about it for obvious reasons, but nothing that was done there occurred on Hazleton Area School District property. So there was absolutely nothing we can do as a school district as far as prosecution goes. However, what we were able to do was take precautions, and we would do that in any similar case where the school personnel know what this person looks like, they have his picture, they know what kind of car he drives, the staff members are aware of it, and it's just a matter of, it's like we always say about being aware. And everyone is aware of what was going on, and basically on the lookout for this individual if he should show up on the property. As far as having somebody at the door, and again, like I said earlier in my opening statement, there is no one silver bullet. There's no one specific answer. Anything that we do, there's a way to get around it. One of the first things I did when I first started with the school district was take all of our security and police personnel off the front desk for a very simple reason. And again, I don't want anybody to think that this was a knee-jerk reaction or something I just want to do. These are policies and procedures that are recommended by national experts. And think about this. If everybody thinks about this, it makes sense. If you have one or two security or police personnel in your building, do you want them tied to one spot, which is that front desk? Okay, because the simple thing that's going to happen is if somebody is intent on coming into any building, whether it's a school building, whether it's a church, whether it's a theater, if they know that your only security or armed personnel is at that front door, one of two things is going to happen. They're not going to come in that door, okay? We have other doors in the building. Okay, they're going to come in another door, or they're going to immediately take out that person at the front door. Okay, you don't want to tell anyone whose intent is to cause destruction in any one of our buildings where our security is. Okay, that's the first thing.
I didn't mean a security person. I just meant person.
Well, I mean anybody. And here's the problem that.
If they took out the person at the front door, then the people in the office at least know there's a problem, as opposed to the person just walked by, but I don't know there's a problem until they.
Here's the problem that we run into, and I'm going to tell you what one of the plans that we have that for the future. What everybody has to keep in mind, in our buildings are old buildings, the majority of them, and they were not they were constructed in a different day and age when security wasn't an issue. If you look at buildings like STEM or like Maple Manor that are newest construction, you can see that the design of the lobbies and the office areas are totally different than Drums, than McAdoo, than Arthur Street, than any of these other schools. We had an unlimited budget. We could change all of that. Okay, we'd have to change the construction of these lobbies and the entrances to all of these buildings, and we simply have to work within our means. It's like any budget that you have. One of the things that we're looking at with this new camera system, we have the possibility of the same company that's putting in this system also does remote access. One of the things that we're looking at is the possibility of having one or two people in one central location that's going to control the access to every building. So in other words, when somebody comes to the front door and they ring that buzzer, it's not ringing in the office. It's ringing in a central location where somebody is sitting there watching cameras of the front door and the lobby area and the office. They can then talk to that person, find out what they want, pick up the phone, call the office of that building, tell them who's there, ask them if they want them to be allowed entry. If that entry is allowed, they can then buzz them in and watch them via video walk directly into that office. You now have eyes watching that person go in. If they go anywhere but that office, they can then alert the personnel in that school that they have someone in there and they're not where they should be. Okay, so again, this is something that we're looking at down the road that may be a way to circumvent the construction and design deficiencies that we have in our schools right now.
The schools that actually have the big doors, so you've got a buzz in, and then you've got this massive lobby, you go one way, you hit the cafeteria, go the other way, you hit. Right in front is the office. Why don't we take off those doors to the office? They can then see where that person is going the minute that they walk in those doors.
And then you also let
There's
somebody gain
four
direct,
rooms.
and then you also let somebody gain direct access to that office with nothing to stop them.
There's nothing to stop me from going into that office anyway.
They,
If I was in 10, they're expecting me to come in the office. Right? Because this is, these are people that aren't supposed to be there for the most part. You look at the history of all of them, most of those people had access and were allowed to be there. If I was in 10 and I walked through that door, it's not going to stop me because I'm expecting me to come in those doors. There's only going to be a problem if I go another direction. So by having those doors aren't a barrier.
again, ma'am, there's, all I can say is there is no one specific
No,
solution.
there's not. But I
Because
think
everything
that
you
should
come
be
up with,
consideration. At least then something. Like Valley Elementary, for instance, and I know that some of them are all designed the same way, their lobbies, to go into the administration area. Once you get into that administration area, there's 4 officers, 4 on either side, that they have access to if somebody was coming in. You've got more of a chance to protect yourself from somebody coming in if those doors are off, because you can see what's going on. Whereas I'm coming up to the door, you've got these small rectangular windows, I'm opening the doors, and then that's it, I'm there.
Have the security officer at the main door, and use the other doors for exit only. Exit only, nobody gets in through the extra doors. The extra doors, exit only, and have an alarm, like we do at the hospital. At the hospital, if you try to get out, the alarm will sound. You have to get out through the front door. The school building should be that way too. You get out through the front door only, and enter to the front door only. You try to open another door, which is for emergency only, in case of fire or whatever. You open the door to get out, an alarm will sound. They have that at Walmart. They have that at Bascos. Try to get out through the front door, alarm will sound, and security is on top of you right away. Anybody who needs to come in, use the front door only, and meet security at the front door. Thank you.
And then we'll have Joe jump up there. You wanted to say something too.
Sorry. Okay, I'm a paraprofessional in the district. And I'm thrilled to say that Chief Harry has offered to come and do training for the support staff, but it shouldn't only be him. We have to make sure that your support staff is just as trained and just as aware as to what's going on, not only the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, but the food service workers as well. Because a lot of times things happen in the cafeterias, and those food service workers are going to step up to protect those kids just like everyone else. But if they don't know how to do that, it could be a hindrance. Another thing is, this just happened yesterday at Drums. We had a fire drill that nobody knew was coming, and I understand that's supposed to be how it works. But in light of what just happened, I was in the library with students. There was another teacher in there with students. And we kind of looked at each other like, okay, do we take the kids out into the hall now? Because no one knew this was coming. And fresh in our minds was the fact that the shooting in Florida happens because they pulled the fire drill and all those kids went into the hallway. Huh? What didn't happen? Somebody else pulled it? There wasn't a second fire alarm?
There was a fire alarm. If I can elaborate on what she's talking about. One of the things that we were taught when we're taught how to conduct active shooter training, one of the statistics that was given to us is the last death in a school by fire was over 50 years ago. And the reason we have such a exemplary record is because of the fire alarms, the safety systems, the fire drills that are conducted, and everybody's able to get out of a building safely. Unfortunately, in the Florida incident, a lot of people jumped to conclusions, and it was immediately reported by the media. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the media, but sometimes they run out of things to say, and they try to fill the time by assuming things that didn't happen. The fire alarm did go off in that school. However, it's been shown that there is no evidence that this particular shooter pulled that alarm. What they're assuming at this point is that the fire alarm activated because of the smoke from all the rounds that were fired, and that's what activated the alarm. I have a lot of people asking me right now, sending me emails, sending me text messages, what should we do now for a fire alarm? Should we not, if the fire alarm goes off, should we not go out? And my response to that is absolutely not. Okay, we're not going to take 50 years of no deaths due to a fire and throw that out the window now and throw all those procedures out the window because somebody assumed that a shooter pulled the fire alarm. Okay? We just, again, that's something that would be a knee-jerk reaction to what happened, and that's not what we want to do.
Right,
Okay?
I mean, we did take
What
the
we
kids
tell
out.
people, okay, if that fire alarm goes off, use your head, okay, use common sense. Look, listen, smell, there's a lot of things you can look at. If that fire alarm goes off and you open your classroom door and you're hearing pop, 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 like it might be gunshots, obviously you're not going out in that hallway. Okay, you're going to ignore that fire alarm. There's no right or wrong answer, right? There's no black and white answer. Everything's a gray area, and what we try to teach people when we give this training is use common sense, use the common sense that God gave you, and make a decision. People ask me, should we run out the window? Should we barricade ourselves? I can't give you an answer, do this or do
Depends
that.
what's happening.
You have to take into account everything that your senses are telling you is going on. And then use all of that to make a decision on what you're going to do.
You know, if we could just point out in Columbine, Klebold and Harris started fires. They started fires in the cafeteria with propane tanks. So you did have active fires going on, as well as them walking around the building shooting people. So it's exactly what Chief Harry is saying. You have to take every situation, and you're going to have to think about what you're doing, where you're going. You know, we hear, should we jump out the window? Can we run to an exit? If you feel at that point that that's viable, that exit is clear, that you can get to that point, but remember, you know, you're tagging along, for a teacher, you're tagging along 20, 30, 35 students with you, you know? So it's a big decision, and that's why I agree. Look, listen, smell, use all your senses, and make a decision and live by it.
Right,
How did the shooter get in, do they know how the shooter got in the building in Florida?
Not yet.
That has to
They
be
haven't-
determined.
Or they haven't released it yet, if they do know.
That-
What happens, every time we have an incident like this, and unfortunately, there's just too many now that give us enough to learn from, but usually within a year, so you'll see an after-action report, and these are the things that we study, okay? Instead of making the assumptions like you pulled the fire alarm, once all the evidence is gathered, there are reports that are written, that are disseminated to law enforcement, to the public, and here's the facts of what actually happened. They're the things that we and experts look at to possibly alter what we do, our responses, things like Columbine altered law enforcement response forever to an active shooter situation. Okay, if we remember, Columbine, I'm doing this, I hate to say this because it dates me, but I'm doing this close to 45 years. And what we were taught when I first started on this job in a situation like that was you form a perimeter. Form a perimeter so you can contain the bad guy and you wait for tactical units to get there. Columbine changed all that thinking, okay, immediately, okay, because they determined that while law enforcement was sitting outside the building and forming a perimeter and waiting for a SWAT team to get there, which might take a half hour to an hour, people are dying. Okay, so now the response has changed to, we're going in immediately. We're not waiting for tactical teams. We're going in, we're neutralizing the threat. We're going towards the sound of the gunfire. It was originally, and even to show you the way that even evolved, was the initial training was you were going in 4-man teams. Then the thought process was, well, you can't even wait for 4 people to get there. Okay, so now you're taught individual officers. If you're the first one there and nobody else is there, you're going in. Okay, so things evolved based on what happens. Now, what inevitably happens there is the bad guys change what they do. They adapt to what our procedures are. So what's the next thing? Then we adapt to what they're doing. Then they adapt. I hate to say it's a game, but it's a chess match. Okay, they change, we change. And this is why I said security is fluid. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer. There's nothing that we're going to say, okay, this is the way it's done, and that's never going to change. It changes all the time. It changes based on what we learn from incidents that happen.
So let's learn that we want to make sure that all of our staff is trained, because many times our paraprofessionals are left alone with the students. Kinder time, Mrs. Falabelle has a classroom of students. There's never a teacher in there with her. You know, sometimes she has 30 students in there. So we just want to make sure that everyone is included in the training. And Chief Harry has offered to come at any time and train our group, which we're very appreciative of.
And I will. So everybody knows, I mean, I've offered, the hard part with training in the district is
Time.
when you do it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've offered to do it after hours. I'll do it at night. I'll do it on weekends. I'll do it during the summer. I don't care. I'll make myself available. I'll make my officers available. You just tell us when and where to be there, and we will be there, and we will do training for any group.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. We've done it on Act 80 days, but the problem we run into with Act 80 days is there is so much other training that has to be done that it's hard to fit in. We just did an active shooter training on an Act 80 day. We took part of the day. The training that we did up at the castle, the last active shooter training we did, that was a hands-on training. It got incredible reviews from the people that took part in it. And a lot of the teachers asked now, well, we'd like to do this in our own building, okay, because this is the building we're familiar with. So we offered even in-service days, in-service training days, because the teachers are in their own building. We will come and do it. But then again, to find the time to do everything else that they need to get the training on and include that in there. And this is why I've said, if anybody's willing to come after hours and just volunteer their time to be there, I'm certainly willing to volunteer mine, and I'll be there.
I'm in the schools a lot. Would you recommend?
We actually, the course I talked about, the CRACE training, that myself and another officer are now certified trainers in, we are actually trained to give that training to any groups, and that's open to staff members, to students, we can do businesses. There are community organizations. A business might want active shooter training for their business and their employees, and we can tailor that training to whatever audience, for lack of a better term, that is requesting that training. But we'll be happy to do that anywhere. And again, I do that on my own time. I don't get overtime, so however many hours I put in, I get paid the same. I'm willing to go anywhere at any time, to train anybody.
Wait,
We have,
There's a lady back there that's
Wait,
patient.
he's at the podium.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Smart or wise enough to have a code name, an aggressive shooter? Like, to announce it over the intercom, or is it not wise? Like
They do
did
have
in
that.
Florida, they used code red, and that's when the staff realized that it wasn't.
Can I, let me,
We
throw it.
learn, we actually do learn a lot of things when we do our drills. We just did a lockdown drill at the high school, and we learned something. Even as many lockdown drills as we've done, we learned that we now have to do two things. When we make that announcement that the school's in a lockdown, we not only have to do it over the PA system, but we have to do it over the radios. Because it turns out that some of our maintenance staff was outside the building, so didn't hear the PA system, but they have radios. So now we learned we've got to do it over both. We also learned that we have to give the lockdown order in English and Spanish. Because we actually found, when we started walking around the building to check on it, we found students walking in the hallway, and we asked them, and when we asked them, they didn't understand what we were asking them. Why are you in the hallway when you called the lockdown? They heard the PA, but they didn't know what was being said. So we've now learned that when we give that lockdown order, it's got to be in English and Spanish. So this is why we do drills. Okay, and we do drills because every time we do a drill, we learn something from it. As many times as we've done it, we're still going to learn something new every time we do a drill.
along, let me jump in right there, just real quick. Just to answer your question, the training that I've had over the years, and I'm National Incident Management Systems certified. I've been a lifeguard, EMT, a fire department, firefighter, whatever. The trainings that I've gone through, it's not wise to have code red, code blue, code purple, whatever, because we have substitutes that come into the building. They don't realize what those codes mean. We have parents that might come into the buildings. They don't know what those codes mean. New students aren't going to know what those codes mean. So it's more effective to say, there's an intruder in the building, and this intruder is in location XYZ, wherever. And these cameras that we have now are going to be able to say, oh, hey, we can pinpoint exactly where you are. So we're going to throw you off a little bit, intruder, and say, we know where you are. We're coming after you. Those types of things. So it is not wise. It's not recommended to use any type of code word.
It's the acronym, we've all heard the acronym KISS, K-I-S-S, keep it simple, stupid. And we try to keep it as simple as possible. Just so there's less confusion. The only difference we have from a lockdown, we have two things. We have a lockdown, we have a restricted movement. Okay, both of which have two different meanings. And we came up with that a long time ago. When Mr. Zola was the director of security, he got a panel together of community members, law enforcement, different agencies to sit down and write. We wrote the first crisis management policy for the district. And we talked about lockdowns, we put that in the policy, and then we talked about what do we do, what should we do if we have something that doesn't quite get to the level of a lockdown, but you want to get everybody out of the hallways. And we came up with what we coined the phrase restricted movement. And I know in all the years since then, in other places that I've worked and talking to other schools, and they kind of grabbed on that when I talked to them about that, and they said, oh, well, geez, we never thought of that, because all they have are lockdowns. And I've heard from other schools that, geez, we go into lockdown, it's really not necessary to be hiding and all this. And I told them about what we came up with for restricted movement, and that's actually been adopted by quite a few other school districts. But that's all we use. We use lockdown, we use restricted movement, and we like to keep it between those two because it's just simple. We have, for those of you who don't know it, we have flip charts in every single room in this school district. They're a bright yellow, they're mounted on the wall in every room, and they're tabbed. What simple instructions on what to do for lockdown, restricted movement, bomb threats, and you can go right to that and go right down the line. Here's what we do. So there are just a lot of things that most people aren't aware of that we do in this district, just to try and keep everybody as safe as we can.
That guy's been standing there.
Let him talk,
Let him
please.
talk.
Thank you. You all know who I am now. But I have a question, number one, about PTAs. Did we do away with them? Grandparents like me, in my case, 69-year-old, volunteering, working in the schools. We did at Heights Terrace when Dr. Antonelli was the principal. Dr. Carr left. She would speak on behalf of me, too. We, as parents and grandparents, did something where you had to write your own book. Every student, and either in Spanish or English, because back then when my boys are out of school, they're 30 and 28. You had to write your book. We had a thing called Hawk Press as parents, PTA, and then we also had grandparents that came and helped out in classrooms. And all they did, what that teacher said, showed their love, that they loved the kids at all ages, meaning first grade, kindergarten, all the way up. Can't we do that again? Joe Gantz, Pat Gantz, Barry J.S., and this TV station would help you promote parents and grandparents and make them understand that your children, being parents, your grandchildren need your help, and let them come to a meeting like this. Joe Gantz and Pat and Barry would definitely support that.
Yes.
You were on Gary Perna's show.
Yes.
But I'm saying I think the parents and grandparents and PTAs should be more involved.
Right.
Just like you said about all these empty seats, there should be more people that are concerned about whether it's taxes, whether it's their kids. And I know all of you don't have a blank check, number one, to do things that he is probably one of the best, Vinny, one of the best policemen that ever came out of the police department at City Hall. There was others, don't get me wrong, that were real good, but they're not all working here because you don't have a blank check to pay everybody that should be here. If you did, then the taxpayer would understand why the taxes got to go up for better security. But I, unfortunately, grew up here, like I said earlier, 69 years I've been here. The biggest problem is people don't come to these meetings. I basically couldn't come because I worked 50 years at my job. So I couldn't. When I could come here, I'm here. Vinny's giving me a ride home. My wife gave me a ride here because I don't drive. I had a stroke. But my point is, I think if you went to Joe Gantz and Pat Gantz and Barry J.S. or Gary Perna, if that word got out that we need parents here, grandparents here, to help out in the schools with the little ones that have problems, like that lady has a problem with her son, right? And you have problems, and there's others like that to have problems. But I think the grandparents and parents need to know that via this station in particular, because they are everywhere with live events and what's going on.
Yes, they are.
I say that from the heart because I know Joe Gantz, I know Pat, I know Barry, I know everybody probably at Hazleton, but this station here would help you. Let people know. And that guy that was over here, he's gone. Ken Jackson wouldn't even do things in the paper. Because I know the owners. They passed away. There's new owners now. But the standard people would help too.
We do have very active PTAs. We do have grandparents that do come into our buildings too.
But there's more out there like I used to be.
There are more out there, yes.
Sitting on my rear end and
Yes,
not coming out to help.
We could definitely do that. We can reach out.
More than the publicity, our voice will count. You know what? I went to a meeting, it was great. You should come too. I went to the meeting, it was great. That's how my business grows.
Yes.
I come to a meeting. They're not going to read the newspaper. They're not going to listen to the news sometimes.
Yes.
I work 10 hours, 12 hours. Sometimes I cannot even come into this meeting. But if I tell the partners, listen, I was concerned. I went there. There was great people. There was solution. You should come. I'm going to bring one. He's going to bring another one. He's going to bring another one. And soon you'll have all this
Filled.
full of parents.
Yes.
And I agree. This is a teamwork. I don't think it's only you guys.
Correct.
I came, and I'm sorry that I jumped in, but I know it's getting late. I came in as a concerned point, and I'm leaving as a very grateful to you guys, parents, because look how many parents are here. It's not many, and you guys are here. Listen to our concerns. You know, me at fault, I was guilty. I have two kids. One graduated from the high school here. One that is in 8th grade here in Hazleton.
15 seconds remaining.
paid for a special need, and it was awesome. I love it. I worked in Valley Elementary for 8 months. I work in drums. So we need to get involved. It's not only going to take your guys, it's our kids. This is your school and your students, but we are the parents.
Yes.
We need to teach our kids at home. You know, you guys will protect them out here, but we also need to teach them. And the communication between the teaching and the parents, I'm not seeing it lately. We have an issue where we find out from another person that something had happened. And we have a issue in Wayside Elementary. A girl from church also that we got involved, and it was back and forth. But the teacher was believing on the girl instead of believing on the mother. And they come to see that she was lying. So you see the communication between the parents and the kids, and you guys and us. I want to be part of the solution. I have not been a part of the solution. I just been part of a parent who wants you guys to do my job.
Right.
And I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about anybody else.
Yep.
So as a parent, I want to be part of the solution, and that's what
Yes.
I'm doing. And I'm so sad that this has been my first meeting, and I have 2 kids, and I work in the district, and I love the district. I love Hazleton City, and I'm a taxpayer too. I have a property in Hazel Township, which I pay taxes there. I have a property in Hazleton, which I pay taxes. So meanings, and I also have 2 kids, and I have not been doing my job. I don't came here today for you guys to do my job as a parent. I came here the other day to speak to the gentleman. He was not here, but another gentleman received me very well and gave me information. And he invited me to come here today, and I'm very grateful for him and for all of you guys. But I think this is teamwork. And I think if we can say it to another parent, listen, I went to this meeting. There was great people there. They're willing to listen to you. We should go. Some of us think that if we come, you guys are not going to listen. That our voice is not going to be a voice. It's just going to be a party here, there, whatever. You complaining, your kids, take care of them. You guys have proved to me that you guys are concerned. This lady proved to me that she is a concerned mother. You know, you proved to me that you're a concerned father. So now I want to come to every meeting you guys have. And I will say to everybody, you should come to this meeting. And like Joe said, you guys should get involved and help. We want to be part of the solution, not part of the problems.
Right.
Or causing more problem complaining.
Yeah.
You know, I want to help. You know, if we can help, I want to help. If I have to get I want my kids safe, but I want to be part of that safe. You know, I want to get involved.
And please note, you don't have to wait until once a month or twice a month that we have a meeting. Call me. Send me an email. I'll respond one way or the other. You know, we'll get in touch if you have concerns, whatever.
I was so nervous to stand on the microphone. You gave me bravery to walk to speak.
I'm just glad you did it.
So, I mean, I'm
There
so
should
sorry.
be more parents like you.
I'm so sorry that I was so uneducated, but you know what? You make me believe when you say parents and grandparents that we do need to get involved. So thank you, Joe. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, you know what? You are correct. I'm a retired teacher, and that is a big problem with us, that we don't get a lot of parents to come. And I think some parents are afraid when they see the school. It intimidates them. But if parents like you talk to your friend and the other friend and say, hey, listen, they're not going to bite your heads off or anything, you know, and come, and that they see you're friendly, that's where it starts. And if you get parents to communicate and to get involved, that's part of the battle. So I thank you, and I thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll get more people to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You should be okay.
Thank you for doing what you do.
I worked almost 2 years with special ed, so you can feel better. The teachers were great. They love the kids like they were at home.
We thank you very, very much, and I know, Antonio, you had a question, but we can talk. We can talk. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. It's greatly appreciated. Your support is tremendous. Thank you very much, and if you do need anything, just yell. Thank you.
Tony, I'm sure he'll be back there.